Let me introduce our first speaker, Michelle. Michelle Beyo is a CEO and founder of Finavator. Finavator is a strategy consultancy focused on payment and fintech innovation. Michelle is also the OBIC Open Banking Initiative Canada board member and a lot of other organizations as well. Money 2020, Rise Up alumni, Women in Payments, Global Council Committee member, and a lot of other organizations. She is also a strategic advisor for multiple fintechs. And her speech title is Open Banking in Canada, the time is now.
Really happy to be here today, and it's my second time being at Cybersecurity and Risk. Last time I was here talking about women in tech, and really excited about today's topic, open banking, the time is now. And I wanted to start today's discussion actually with a quote from EQ's CEO, Andrew Moore. Giving customers control over when and how to share their financial data will spur the development of tailored product services to create more innovative and competitive financial markets. This has happened in so many other markets, and I am so looking forward to the moment in time where Canada decides to jump into this space, as it is transforming markets around the world and creating ecosystems of innovation, additional VC dollars, and creating new jobs, as well as giving consumers better access to more affordable services. So thank you, Brian. My next slide, I'm actually going to skip over because Brian did such a great intro for me. But I do want to mention OBIC, joining the OBIC in August of last year as a board member was such an incredible opportunity to truly try and help from an ecosystem, many different players coming together to try and have one voice for the consumer, as well as for small to medium businesses in the advantages of open banking, but also for all of the fintechs, FIs, paytechs, financial service providers, and so on, trying to come together to have a voice of why open banking needs to come to Canada. And as I jump into the next slide, just wanted to take a minute to discuss the disruption that's happening. So the ecosystem is being disrupted from all sides, especially accelerated through COVID in the last year. But customers need an experience that continues to be evolved. Companies who adapt, build, deliver, and innovate and are meaningful solutions to their customers will drive ahead into tomorrow's leadership, especially in the times of rapid change like now. Strategic partnerships, digital solutions, and having the key tools to be the most resilient companies through this time of change. And as we jump to the next slide, and we're looking at the ecosystem that's being disrupted around the world, what is open banking? I think that's a key question, because I think there's still a lot of miseducation on what open banking actually means. So I'll try and simplify. Open banking is a secure way to give providers access to consumer data information. It's a system designed to bring more competition and innovation to a financial service ecosystem. In today's market, actually, probably now this data from my slide is from 2019 or end of 2019, beginning of 2020, it doesn't include the pandemic information, which will hopefully be coming out this year, to share that we're most likely at 5 million Canadians currently screen scraping. And what does that mean? It means that they most likely, like 97% of Canadians, have a core bank account, but they're also looking to access innovative services that will help them for their financial future, like Wealthsimple, like Coho, like Wave for accounting. And to access these services, they do not have a secure method to do so today, and therefore are using screen scraping. I like to hold on this point because in the UK, they hit 1 million before they moved to open banking for secure infrastructure, and we've almost hit 5. So I'm hoping we're hitting a tipping point of necessary need to give consumers the data rights they deserve. 30% have lack of control of their financial data, if not more. We are 48% of Canadians in 2019 that were 200 away from bankruptcy. every month. And I can only imagine that, unfortunately, that number has probably grown in the sense of the pandemic. And when we look to the UK and them jumping into the open banking ecosystem back in 2017 and being, the first record of financial gain is showing that 440 million converted to Canadian dollars is what has contributed to the growth of the ecosystem in 2019 and growing. And as we go on to the next slide, I'd just like to share some of the benefits that live in a complete ecosystem, which I will get to. But just looking at the path of Canada, no, you're good, Brian. So when we look at the path of Canada, we see open banking. We've definitely been talking about open banking. We're just one of the last in the Commonwealth to make a move from a government regulatory standard perspective. So if we look to 2018, the beginning, some positive expectations, the Federal Advisory Committee formed. In 2019, there was lots of actions, just not a lot of results just yet, but the review of the merits of open banking was published, so there was a lot of optimism. The Senate committee held the hearing on the issues and positive report for open banking, and the Canadian Digital Charter was released. And as we moved into 2020 with the pandemic, nobody predicted. Still happy, though it was slow progress. There was progress in 2020, right? And that's a really positive aspect. We need to make some positive trajectory moves. So the Advisory Committee on Consumer-Directed Finance reported strong recommendations about moving forward, as well as the second phase of the virtual hearing, or the virtual consultation, which was the second consultation, happened and was held in late November, early December, with all stakeholders, I will state, excepting one, was involved. So there was fintechs, there was banks, there was VCs. The only thing that I would say about the consultation, though I was only informed through proxy, is OBIC did have 2 members that were able to attend as well, so happy to have that. There was a lot of discussion about challenges that the banks were talking about, challenges that fintechs were talking about, and their challenges, but there wasn't a lot of voice about the consumer and the rationale and the need for the consumer to have open banking. They didn't have a voice, or small business. So that lens of discussion wasn't a strong part of that consultation. And I know that there is want and will within Canada to protect and help the Canadian consumer. And I think it's imperative as we drive forward. And as we go to the next slide and just talking a little bit about, how we all come together, I believe it's not a zero-sum game. I believe that everybody in Canada wins in the sense of access to open banking. Canadian consumers will have access to new products, different product pricing. They would have ability to be able to share the parts of their data they need to access the service they want instead of all of their data, which is such an important point. As well as small businesses, myself being a small business owner, having a Wave account, when your API, when the access to screen scraping goes down and you can't complete your accounting for the month, it is a very frustrating state. And it's something I think at this point within an ecosystem, we have to be able to solve in a more rational way. Looking at banks, it's driving innovation. It's moving a lot of aspects to cloud. It's creating new relationships with fintechs and touching different consumers they may not have had in the past. When you look to fintechs, it's giving them accessibility to a secure API that would have a 99.9% uptime like normal API infrastructure, so that their business wouldn't go down when screen scraping wasn't available, as well as have them not hold all of the data that they don't need and only request the data that they do need to create the service that will help the Canadian consumer or small business. And then from Canada as a whole, it will help us get into the global arms race of open banking. We're the last in the Commonwealth, as I mentioned, to make a move. And as you look to Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Singapore, Mexico, Brazil, and many others, Canada can still be a fast follower and can still gain the advantages of creating an ecosystem that can not only drive new innovation, but additional VC dollars to our fintechs, as well as give them an opportunity to have potential global scale and have more unicorns form, similar to what's happening on a Wealthsimple front. But having a regulatory roadmap where they can comply, certify, and be able to grow. I think it's a really exciting time that we can take advantage of if we all come together as an ecosystem. And as we look to the next slide, I always like to compare to the UK. They were the first to move. They had very strong regulatory positioning, and they did have 9 banks. None of the 9 banks have closed. They have all found different ways to drive innovation or to evolve and to create new relationships. And it has created an ecosystem where in Canada, we had $241 million worth of investment in our VCs in 2019. And in the UK, they had $6 billion. I'm hoping that by taking on the initiative of moving to open banking, that there is the growth path in front of us that we're seeing from the UK. I won't go through all the stats, but I do like to share a couple pieces. So in terms of adoption, in January 2021, the market had 2.5 million using open banking with over 303 registered providers. And the open banking API calls have now hit a volume of 66.8 million. We're at 66.8 million and have grown to nearly 6 billion at the end of 2020. There is a mass opportunity for consolidation in the sense of security and accessibility. And I love that today's discussion is about cybersecurity. As we jump to the last slide, I have some key takeaways. I think that the global progress towards open banking is moving extremely quickly in many jurisdictions, and Canada is at risk of falling behind. We need the ecosystem stakeholders to work together to drive open banking forward in Canada for the benefits of the consumers today, not tomorrow. And the collaboration approach benefits all stakeholders. The advancement of Canadian financial services market and competition, enabling new partnerships and innovation within the financial modeling and market, as well as driving insights that will help define a new regulation for the Canadian market. And I like to end today's slide by talking a little bit about OBIC. Because when I joined the organization, my first offer of being part of a board, I got to talk to Christian, and I was humbled and excited. And my first comment was, I would love to join the board, but I have to ask, can we move from 2 women and 8 men to a 50-50 board initiative? And his reply was, oh my gosh, I've got 2 teenage daughters. I couldn't think of a better thing. And I have no grasp why I hadn't thought of that myself. Being an ecosystem that is trying to help all different stakeholders win from open banking, but also have a board that represents a 50-50 female to male organization, as well as be a non-for-profit and work with fintechs and credit unions and hopefully more ecosystem players within banks and networks so that we can drive this ecosystem forward as an inclusive organization. And we have just actually shared our 80-page manifesto that has just come out in March. It was an 8 months to a year labor of creating this document that has insights from around the world on how other markets have moved and how we believe that Canada can be a fast follower and can benefit our Canadian consumers, our small to medium-sized businesses, as well as the full ecosystem.